In this lesson, we'll be looking at architecture in ancient Sparta. In particular, we'll be looking at their religious sites and their temples. The Amykleion. This is a religious and political centre of Sparta. The Menelaon. This was a shrine of Menelaus and Helen. Menelaus and Helen were two people they were two characters from the story of the Trojan War, and Sparta believed in that story, and so they had a shrine to them there. The sanctuary of Artemis Orthia. This had a temple to Artemis. We'll start with the Amykleion. This was the political and religious centre of Sparta. And this is quite a good picture here. You can see some of the ruins here, and then in the background you can see all the land and then the mountains. It's such a beautiful location. And I think it might be a nice place to go and visit as a tourist. They actually have the modern city of Sparta today, which has about 18,000 people, and it was built on the ruins of the old city, or on the site of the old ancient city. And I think it'd be a very beautiful place to go and visit. I mean, what a sight, all these magnificent mountains in the background. But as you can see, they had the ruins here as well. The most important Spartan festival, the Hyakinthia, took place here. The Amykleion. The sanctuary was excavated in 1890 by the Greek archaeologist Chris Sountas. Later excavations were carried out by Furtwängler, architect E. Fichte, 1904, and A. Scius, 1904. Monuments at Amyclae. They have the Acropolis of Amyclae, the Temenos of the Sanctuary of the Apollo, and Hyakinthos. Preserved at the site are the retaining wall, circuit walls, traces of foundations dating to various periods, so they might have rebuilt it a few times over the years, and a circular altar. Remember, it was a religious site, so naturally they had an altar there. And this is quite a good picture. You can see the remains of a wall here, and that wall is probably thousands of years old. The throne of Apollo at Amyclaeus. Remember, Apollo was the god of light, and he was one of the most important gods in ancient Greece, and he was worshipped all over Greece, and Sparta also worshipped him. Now, they had a stoa-like building or altar which surrounded on three sides the colossal column-shaped statue of the god. So you can see at the front here they've got some columns. It's a beautiful building, nicely decorated, and inside is the column-shaped statue of the god. It was decorated with relief representations. They're like paintings on the walls. It's not a painting you would hang on the wall. It's an actual painting they'd paint onto the wall. And they had plastic compositions. The shrine of Helen and Menelaus. It was on top of a hill. Now, just look at this picture to start with. I think this picture is absolutely amazing. I think it is absolutely beautiful. It's breathtaking. You've got the ruins there of the shrine on the top of the hill, and in the background, these magnificent mountains. I mean, just to go there, I think would have been very uplifting, very inspiring. It's such a fantastic place to have a shrine. It had very beautiful views, and anyone who went there, I think, would have been put into a better mood just by being there. It's very uplifting. A few metres from here are the remains of the earliest Mycenaean palace in mainland Greece. Now, I'll just explain something about the Mycenaeans. The Mycenaeans were ancient Greeks, but they came even before the Spartans. When we look at Spartan history, we're looking at Sparta 400 BC, 500 BC, 600 BC. We're looking at Sparta during that time. The Mycenaeans go back at least 600 years before that. Now, in ancient Greece, there was a very famous writer called Homer. I'm not talking about Homer Simpson, I'm the cartoon character. I'm talking about Homer, the ancient Greek writer. Now, Homer wrote two books. One is the Iliad, and the other one is the Odyssey. And the Iliad is like the ancient Greek Bible. It was a very important book for the ancient Greeks. Alexander the Great apparently slept with it under his pillow or under his bed. It was a very important book. Now, in the story of the Iliad, you basically have a story of King Menelaus from mainland Greece, from Mycenae, who was having a war with Troy, which is a city in what we now call Turkey. And he's gone over and had this war with Troy because he wanted to get back Helen, who was this extremely beautiful woman who had run off with a man called Paris, who was a prince of Troy. So they basically had a war and tried to get Helen back. And that's where these two people sort of come from. Now, in regards to this story, they have found the ruins of Troy. They found the ruins of Troy, and they found they found evidence that it was burned to the ground. There was a few different Troys. They were rebuilt over time, and they did find evidence that at one of the levels it must have been burned down. So we do have archaeological evidence of Troy, and we do have archaeological evidence that the city was burned to the ground. But we can't be sure how much of the story of the Iliad was true. There's a lot of religion in it. It talks about the gods coming down to help in battles and so on. So obviously people would doubt those sorts of stories. But certainly elements of the story must be true. I mean, there was at least a city called Troy. So these two people, Helen and Menelaus, they come from this story of the Trojan War. They come from this story written by Homer, this story written in the Iliad. And so the Spartans believed it, and they've got a shrine to Helen and Menelaus there. And I think it was an absolutely beautiful shrine, absolutely breathtaking. I think any time you go there, it would have been very, very nice and very uplifting for anyone who went there.